Let me just show you real quick. But if you can look in that pot, you can see some pieces of bark, but especially back in here, it just looks like she's in soil right down in here, right over in here. And then she's missing quite a bit of media right here. There's hardly any. And normally if the bark was okay and she was just missing bark, I would just fill this in. But because she's not doing very well and she's very unsteady, let's use the word unsteady in this pot, that is another reason I'm gonna go ahead and repot her. Now, a lot of people say, you know, you don't repot right now because it is towards the end of the growing season and she's getting ready to produce spikes. Well, she's got these 2 spikes right here, and I'm not cutting them all the way down like I normally would because I might use them as a support. Thought I could just jump that off there, but nope. Let's take that one out and take this one out. And you see how wobbly she is in the pot? She's never gonna grow some good roots if she doesn't get more secure. But before we get rid of her, look at those. Are they not beautiful? And for those of you who have a very keen eye, this is actually my, excuse me, channel picture, as well as she is the banner on my channel page as well. She's just absolutely stunning. She's just so pretty. She's not fragrant at all. What she lacks for fragrance, she more than makes up for in her flowers. Let's take this and squeeze. I don't think I even need to squeeze the pot, but let's just squeeze the pot for sake. Oh yeah, see, let me get this. But it's just, it is breaking breaking down really bad. I am so sorry about my throat, guys, but allergies are kicking my behind today. All right, let's see. So this came off rather easily, and she does have her seedling plug in the basket, and the basket is breaking down, but she does have a couple of roots. Okay, you know what? That root we don't have to worry about trying to save because it is already messed up. And let's take that off. So she does have roots on the inside that are not too bad at all, but I'm gonna go ahead and go through and we'll clean her up and see what we have left after I clean up all these roots. But this is what I was talking about, all these roots at the top. See how desiccated they are? She was putting a lot of energy into that double spike, and I think that was not healthy for her. So that's another reason why I always say I am a proponent of cutting the spikes. And if I see that she's going to try to branch off of these, and I may not even have to use these once I get her in her pot. If I don't, then I'm going to cut them all the way back to keep her from branching. But if I do end up using them, I will keep an eye out, and if I see she's trying to branch, I will cut the branch off because I don't want her to exert any more energy into producing blooms. I want her to exert energy into producing me some more roots. Now, she's probably not going to bloom for me again this fall, just because she did just come from the nursery and they forced them into bloom early. But generally, your Phalaenopsis hybrids will bloom in the fall and winter, and their growth time is spring and summer. But because they are grown in a nursery and nurseries need to sell them, they force them to get into bloom early so that we say, oh, pretty bloom, I've got to take it home, it's so pretty. All right, so as usual, I will fast forward over the root cutting and we'll come back and see what's going on after. Okay, the observant among you who've watched some of my other repots will notice that these roots are not wet. So this is what your roots look like when they are completely dry. They have that silvery tinge to them. And then like these roots right here, do you see how desiccated they look? They're all shrivelly and dry. I will be giving her a water, and then after I pot her maybe. Also, I did not soak her yet, but what I did notice after cutting the roots, so we have a new root, let's see if you can see it. It's like right, let me turn around, right there on that side. And then she has another new root growing right there. So that is actually pretty good because then they'll go into the media, hopefully produce a strong root system. So what I'm gonna do now is obviously I'll spray her some hydrogen peroxide just to kind of seal any wounds. let that sizzle for a little bit, rinse her off just to get any excess media and any dead bugs off. And then we will get her in her new home. And so she's all cleaned up, and I am gonna put her in this pot here. So she came out of this size pot and she's going into this size pot, which is almost twice the size of what she came out of. And I know a lot of people will just upsize one pot size. I prefer to put my orchids into a pot that, one, matches the root system that they're going to have, and then just adjust my watering until that root system builds in. This way I'm not having to disturb by uppotting every 6 months or so, depending on the strength of the orchid, because some do take off really quick and fill up the pot, and then you have to up pot and then fill up the pot and up pot. So I try to find a pot that I can leave them in at least 2 years. So this is what this pot originally looked like. So I just wanted to show you real quick. I take a soldering iron and I make my own holes in this one. This one does not come with the holes in it. You can also use a screwdriver that you've heated up, just any hot metal, and make your own holes. You don't necessarily have to have a soldering iron. And so as always, we're gonna put some media at the bottom. So what I'm putting her in is large bark, some small bark, some perlite, and some charcoal. Let me just shake that so the excess gets out and it's just the large bark at the bottom. And then, as always, I'm going to spread my roots so that I have roots on the outside to monitor and get her potted up, and then we will come back and see what she looks like. Here she is. So I will leave those spikes in there. I was trying to do it without having to use them, but she just doesn't have enough roots to anchor her down quite yet. So she does look a little low in the pot right now, but because these leaves are kind of flimsy, these are still firm, but I'm thinking she's getting ready to absorb these two bottom ones. And if not, I'll just be extra careful when I water to make sure I don't get water in the crown. But I was able to keep quite a few roots on the outside. I have a few there, I have one here, and I have some right in here. So I've got several areas where I can monitor her and make sure that those roots stay well. If, again, I see something happens on those outer roots, I will go back inside the pot just to see what's going on. Don't be afraid to repot your Phalaenopsis. Don't be afraid to repot any time of the year. Yes, it is best to repot them during the beginning of spring, just because that's when everything kicks into growth. However, if there's a need and it needs to be done before spring, do it. Do what works for you. Don't always listen to les scrolls. They're not always right. Things have changed since some of that stuff has been written and put on the internet, or since people have discovered it for themselves and said something about it a few years ago. Don't worry about pot size too much, as long as you know how to work with whatever you're putting it in. Like I said, right now I will water her. I'm not going to keep this pot too wet. That's another reason why I chose the one with the air holes already in it instead of the solid, because she does have quite a few roots. However, she really doesn't have enough roots for this pot to stay wet too long. So will I have to water her a little more often? Obviously, because one, this bark will also dry out the pot quicker because it is new. It's not going to hold on to the moisture as long. However, I don't think that she's going to go downhill. Fingers crossed. And if you enjoyed this, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Leave your comments down below. When do you normally repot your orchids, specifically Phalaenopsis? And I know I do a lot of Phalaenopsis videos, so for those of you who are new, who've only come a couple of times to visit, I love my phals. Phalaenopsis make up the majority of my collection. I've recently got into the more species type, novelty, they call them novelty summer phals, and I just love them. A lot of people who, once they start collecting orchids, the Cattleyas, the Obsidiums, the other types, they kind of get away from the Phalaenopsis, but I feel like these are always going to be part of my collection, and I feel like they're always going to be the bulk of my collection. And with that, everyone have a safe and happy day.